Now, U.S. President Donald Trump, in a press conference on Monday, described his upcoming meet with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin as a feel-out meeting.
And this is to essentially gauge Putin's ideas for ending the war in Ukraine. Now, Trump has invited Putin to Alaska on Friday, that is the 15th of this month, which will mark the first face-to-face meeting between Trump and Putin since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. At the press conference recently, the U.S. president said that he would press his Russian counterpart to end the war.
So I'm going in to speak to Vladimir Putin, and I'm going to be telling him, you got to end this war, you got to end it.
Trump also said he was a little bothered by his Ukrainian counterpart Vladimir Zelensky's stance and insisted that both Ukraine and Russia would have to give up territory to each other as part of a potential peace agreement, adding that his meeting with Putin would test waters for such a deal.
I'm going to meet with him. We're going to see what the parameters are. I'm then going to call up President Zelensky and the European leaders right after the meeting, yeah. And I'm going to tell them what kind of a deal. I'm not going to make a deal. It's not up to me to make a deal.
Trump said he would know within minutes if there would be a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia when he meets Putin later in the week.
At the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made. Because that's what I do. I make deals.
Now, he also revealed plans to call Zelensky and other European leaders immediately after the talks, fearing that Putin will team up with Trump to force unacceptable compromises. European leaders plan to speak separately on Wednesday. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has invited the French, British and other European leaders and the EU and NATO chiefs for a virtual talks. Now, Merz's office said that the video conference and various rounds of talks would discuss further options to exert pressure on Russia in preparation of possible peace negotiations and related issues of territorial claims and security.
EU foreign ministers met in Brussels on Monday with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha and also examined imposing a 19th package of sanctions on Russia since the invasion. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said until Russia agrees to a full and unconditional ceasefire, concessions should not be even discussed.
Zelensky warned against giving in to Putin's demands, highlighting how Russia refuses to stop the killings and therefore must not receive any rewards or benefits. And well, to discuss more, we are now being joined live by Professor James A. Russell. He is an associate professor in the Department of National Security Affairs at the Naval Postgraduate School. Thank you so much and appreciate you having me.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's begin. And Donald Trump has described his upcoming summit with Vladimir Putin as a feel-out meeting. Of course, what we were expecting was probably a deal. What are you getting from his statements coming in, saying he might get a deal? It's not up to him to get a deal, but he might try to get a deal, especially even on topics of territory. What do you make of these statements?
Well, like much of what happens in the Trump administration, with President Trump, we are faced with contradictory, confusing, and sclerotic messaging. And so we are left sort of in a confused state as to what is going on. And I would say that at the outset of this endeavor of the summit is that any discussions between the United States and Russia are a good thing. The United States has to have diplomatic exchanges with the Russians on a whole range of important global issues. But related to this business of the war in Ukraine, the impression you have is of poor prior planning, slipshod, sort of preparations, and a kind of an amateur hour, almost television show-like approach to the whole enterprise of trying to seek a ceasefire. So on the one hand, it's a great thing that the American president is involved in trying to end this war, which by some estimates has led to over 1 million casualties involving both sides. But But then on the other hand, you have absolutely no confidence that he has the sort of wherewithal and the appropriate preparations to fashion some kind of agreement. The Russians have been very clear all along about what their objectives are in the Ukraine war. They seek a neutral Ukraine. They do not want a pro-Western Ukraine. They do not want pro-Western troops in Ukraine. They seek a demilitarized Ukraine. And that's what the Russians are fighting for, and they are
Professor
winning slowly.
Yeah. Just allow me to come in there, because that's essentially what I also wanted to get your thoughts on. We've seen Trump make those comments every week. It's a different comment, and there is, it leaves a lot of people more confused than giving anyone clarity at this point. But from the Russian side, what do you feel Putin is coming into this summit with? Because if we've understood anything about the Russians so far, their points have remained exactly where they were all those years ago. This is what they want, but Trump is suggesting concessions from the Russian side.
Well, I would. All we can do is hope that he's right, that Putin is going to show up with concessions. But frankly, I just don't see it. But I stand to be corrected. I hope that Putin does in fact show up prepared to show flexibility to get some kind of ceasefire and then a peace agreement in place. But I guess I'm skeptical about this. And President Trump himself has been all over the map in terms of the various positions he's taken vis-a-vis the Europeans, vis-a-vis the Ukrainians. It's not clear to me, for example, how you can have any kind of negotiation or serious discussion on a ceasefire or peace agreement in Ukraine without the participation of the Ukrainians and the Europeans.
Yeah, and Europeans are really batting for that Kiev needs to be included in those discussions. And just to add to that confusion, there was also a statement which came in from the US president that he's going to Russia to meet Putin. That has only been considered a little more confusing at this point. If that is true or that's a strategic move, we'll need to just wait and see how that one pans out. That one's Professor James Russell joining us on World DNA. Pleasure speaking with you, sir.
Thank you, sir.